God bless everybody today. It's May 28th of 2021. It's 6:06 p.m. We're heading into a Memorial Day weekend, and we're going to go over some interesting information I found on the potential Bitcoin crash, which is going to change everything in the next 7 to 10 days. If you follow any of my information, articles, videos, things like that, you can find all of my information on my eschatology page at End of Day Survival, endofdaysurvival.com. It's all free resource. There's free PDFs you can click on for my timeline flow charts. All my videos are posted. Everything's out here. Today we're talking about the Bitcoin potential crash, which I believe is going to happen in the next 7 to 10 days, and how that's going to affect us. So Elon Musk tweeted this a while back. I can't give you the exact date. I could barely find the article because he had tweeted this so quickly and then had removed it. I just don't think a lot of people are out here that actually have this. So I was lucky to find it, and I thought it was extremely interesting that he had posted this, and I believe there's a point to this. So I've been talking about the Wyckoff method and how I believe if you use the Wyckoff method, which I've done a couple of videos on, and I'm going to explain part of that here tonight, that this tweet meant something. And what I mean by that is the bull run is over, which means we're going into a bear run. We're going to see potentially two major drops in the market, the crypto market, probably Bitcoin, and that this thing would crash into a ravine or potentially would crash completely down. And so how does this affect the Wyckoff charts and goes together with this potential tweet? So what could possibly have Elon meant by his tweet? Well, if you look at that article or that tweet that he gave us, this tweet shows us that he is telling us that the bull run is over, and so we're moving into a bear run potentially, with potentially two drops and a crash at the end. So what does that mean on the Wyckoff charts, and how does that resemble this? So Bitcoin and Dogecoin all fit together in this chart basically the same because they mirror each other completely. So this could potentially have been the first red line in the tweet. This could have been potentially the second line in the tweet. And this could potentially be the crash, because when you get to the spring, it could fall down to levels that are unheard of and could potentially crash crypto and the equity markets. So is that what he means by this tweet? It seems to, because if he's in the Wyckoff method and he's following these same trends, and we're right here now, we're trying to figure out where this is going to bottom out before it comes up. If it doesn't do this and does something else, then this method is basically broken and it can't be used in this circumstance. But up to this point here, it has worked. This whole process all the way down, up, back, and over to here, and down is in the process of working right this moment. So let's go look at Bitcoin's chart. Now, as you can see, Bitcoin dropped, and then we have another drop in here. Actually, this was the first drop, or that red line. This was the second drop, or red line. And the third drop won't happen until we get over here somewhere. Okay, so this will happen later down the road. Right now, we are in that secondary drop, a correction up, and then we sort of level out and we hit this trough before we shoot back up. At least the method, the Wyckoff method, indicates that's how this should happen. So if you go back and you look at the Bitcoin chart and this chart, you realize it came down, went back up, came down on the second drop, like I just said, came back up. We're starting to trench and level back down, but yet we're dropping, and we won't drop below this level on Bitcoin. Now, we don't know between this point here and this point where this is going to end up. And right now, Bitcoin's at 35,402.1 at this very moment. And that's about 2,000 points less than the last time I made a video. So this is starting to fail. Bitcoin has made a turn. It did come up. It came out of this trench, which was supposed to happen due to the Wyckoff chart. It indicated it had to come out for a small period, and then it's going to come back down. And then it's going to shoot up, and it's going to do that, what we call fake, because people are going to think this is going to go way up, and then it's going to really crash. Okay, so we need to look at, what happened there. It came back up, and then it just was totally rejected by this upper wall, and it came down, and now it's in the process of moving back down this trench. And so if you bring this out, see if I can get it to look right here. If you bring this out and you start to move this chart into place, and I said, 20,000, 16,000 could be a real problem. So let's say if we go into about here, that's around 16,000. This could just slowly feed down this wall until we get down to the bottom, or it could come down quicker. I don't think, due to it did not punch through and come back up, it's going to come down as it's showing here. The trend is back down. I believe there's a death cross or something coming up on the potential hour on Bitcoin. I'd have to go look at the chart, but this is definitely a trend down, and you can see that this could potentially fall down to below that 25,000, 20,000, and potentially even lower level, and that would be a real problem for the market if it went that low. So again, I believe this tweet does affect Doge also, and so with these two downtrends and potential to crash at the end, is he indicating that potentially Bitcoin could potentially have a real problem here, and a reshuffling of how the cryptos are basically laid out from top to bottom, so that Bitcoin is not necessarily the grandfather anymore. So Dogecoin is basically in the same place. It came down, it came back up, it came back down. We came up with a small peak, and now we're in this trench here, waiting to see if it's going to come back up. I say if it doesn't come back up and hit this resistance line, as indicated on the model here, this is a broken model and this doesn't work anymore. So if you look at the Wyckoff chart, and this is Bitcoin, and Doge mirrors this almost exactly. You had that drop, you had a correction, you had a drop, you had a correction, you had a secondary drop that wasn't as deep as this one. It had a recorrection back up, and then it went sideways and dropped into that trough, and that's where we're at, is in that trough. Now, how deep we go into this trough, I don't know before it comes back up if it follows this method. And so Bitcoin and Doge are doing exactly the same thing. I'll show you what Doge's chart looks like. So again, this is Doge's chart. We had this drop. We had a correction. It retraced all the way back down to the second drop, not quite as deep as the first drop. You came back up, had a correction, dropped back down a little, and now we're trenching into this trough. And so if you go back to the Wyckoff charts, you'll see that we're in that trough at this very moment. Now this trough can go in between this high point here and this point. Somewhere down in through here, it's going to potentially stop if it follows the model. And so I don't know exactly where it's going to stop. It doesn't give us any indication other than it potentially has one drop here before it moves up into a potential high correction with a fairly high high on that chart. I'll show you where that's at. So in Bitcoin's chart, we can track and plot all the points up to this point here because we don't know where it's going to stop and bottom out before it shoots back up to this top resistance line. And so we know it came down, and I could have plotted these points, but I didn't. I didn't think it mattered under this chart. But I did do all these additional points so you can see based on the time it occurred down here and where it was at the time of the price of that commodity or cryptocurrency. You could see where that price was and the exact time that happened. So you can look at these different points and realize that this drop here that we're in now can't go below this 31,078.7 and should stay under this point until it stops dropping and then recorrects itself, punches through this lower resistance wall, hits the top resistance wall, and then is basically rejected, and then we hit that secondary low, or this new low on this ST phase B here, which is lower than this low here. So we had a lot of fallout in this drop, which was under 30,000. Now you're, $1,000 under from where you were here. So that makes that a real problem. And then it'll pop back up and it will do some retracing and it will have some retractions up and back for the next week or so until we hit what we call the spring or this drop-off area, which I believe will happen around June 7th and 8th, depending on time and how he extends this out, whether Musk tweets or whatever. This should fall out around Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. Or the week after. It'd be about a week and a half. It's not next week. That you'd still be over here. So around the 7th and 8th. And we don't know from this number because this number is a little higher. This number is a little lower. This number here is going to be in this range and could potentially go under 20,000. And so if it does that, that's going to cause a real carnage on the markets because now you've reduced Bitcoin by 2/3 its value from what it originally was, which was 64,000 up here. Dogecoin is no different in how the chart looks and how it works. Okay, so we had this drop, this massive drop, and you can plot these points out until you get to here. Now these again are date stamped down here, and so you can see where all these points are until you get to here, and now we're in this trough, and I don't, like I say, I don't know where this is going to stop before we come up. One thing I did notice was that if you take this point here and this point here, they're basically at the same level. And so I believe that potentially this, when this comes back up, it will radiate up to this point here. It's the same thing on Bitcoin. So now will it hit exactly? Probably not, but it's in the same zone. And I believe this potentially is the support level. In this case would be the resistance level. When it comes back down, it's going to hit about 16 cents. And so this would be your third low in this grouping. And this is a problem if this comes down to 16 cents, because that means that the spring over here, which happens around June 7th and 8th, could be 12 cents, 8 cents, 4 cents, or even lower. And I've talked about this video I can't seem to find about Musk indicating that he wanted it to go to 0.001, so that's why I placed that there, because we're in a unique situation. We really don't know where Musk is going to take this. It seems like it's following a plan and is predestined to go to a certain place that he's chosen. You know, I don't know how all this works other than he has the juice to pull this thing off, and he's got the money and the supercomputers and the satellites and the people to do this. So we're in no man's land right here, because right as we get to this trough here, we're moving into the future. So will Wyckoff's method play itself out? And I can't necessarily tell you where this level is, where it will totally bottom out. I can tell you this much: it's between 38 cents on the right on the nose and 0.2470995, and it looks like it extends down about halfway or so, but that's not necessarily the case because it's a zone between here and there, so it could actually come down pretty far and then shoot back up. But if the method is accurate, and it seems to be that way for over 100 years now, approximately 100 years, and he is one of the top leading people within the field. And this is a proven method that seems to be harmonized with most, or if not all, stocks. We have to look at this and see whether this method might come into play. It's important that this tweet that Musk gave us might give us potentially a map. Is this what he's telling us that he's going to do to Dogecoin and Bitcoin? I mean, if these numbers are correct and Bitcoin goes to a low in ST in phase B to 28,800 or 28,800, which is lower than this and this. See how that works? There's this triangular of three lower grouping. And in reality, this number, now that I've looked at it, could potentially be this number. So this number might be skewed just a little bit. It's hard to graph this out. You can see the points. And so if this is parallel with this, but below this probably is wrong. This is probably actually 45,000. So I may correct that on the chart now that I see it. It does fall in line with the parameters between here and there. I do realize that this is a parallel plane, and so this number probably is 45,000, and I always correct things in real time, so I will go back and change this chart, and so I will update it. But now that I look at this, and this is real time, I mean, we're trying to figure this out as this is happening. So, I'm trying to do the best I can to to get these numbers on here so we can see where this is going. And then I see like these parallel points where one comes up, meets another parallel point that comes down. You have to realize that there's something happening in there, and that there's a reason for a support line here and a resistance line here. Now, I don't see that anywhere else on this chart. All these other points are deviated away or below or above the other points, so that's not the case anywhere else. But this point definitely could be this point here with a higher point here, and as you can see, this point didn't come up. It hit this resistance line and fell back down. That would be within the parameters of here, here, and having the middle number here. So it's all fluid right now. There's nothing static about these charts other than potentially the history back here, because as we move to this point, we don't realize exactly where this may be. It may be a resistance in the past, and we haven't figured out how to plot this specific point out. Once the chart starts moving into this upward trajectory, then you should be able to plot this point on both charts and get a handle on whether this is going to actually do this leg up. If this actually does a leg up and hits this top resistance in these areas, even close to the numbers that I've given you, the Wyckoff method might be in play here, and that may be why this tweet was so important. Now, I've added an additional article to the front of my eschatology page. So if you go to my eschatology page, the front page, go down to the very first video. This is the 6th update of this series on the Bitcoin crash. You click on that. That will give you the article. It also gives you the 2 PDF files that I presented here and video about this. Now, I didn't realize, I didn't think about the tweet necessarily being part of the Wyckoff method, but if Musk is as smart as I think he is, my guess is that he tweeted that long enough so that somebody would see it and understand what it meant, and then we would be able to potentially warn the community to hold on, that this is going to go pretty far down. But if they just wait this thing out or buy down below, they can average their cryptocurrencies out, because they'll get them at a fire sale, rock bottom prices. And that as we move this market back up from this crash, then people will get their wealth back if they didn't get out. And so I think that's why he's having these warnings and all this imagery and subliminal messaging going on, so that the cryptocurrency communities will pick up on this and hopefully not do really what they call FOMO type moves at the end, where you just make really bad decisions and just basically lose potentially your life savings in this potential nightmare that's happening on the financial systems. So God bless everybody. Find the open door. That's Jesus. He's the only way to the Creator. He's the only way to get to heaven. Times are getting interesting. If this is a market crash, things will change rapidly at this point, and I've talked about that June 30th date and those 2300 mornings and nights of Daniel 12 for some time now. God bless and have a great night.